my name is Cheyenne Reel, and I am the Student Success Librarian over at the Richard E. Bjork Library. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the different library resources and services we have at our library here at Stockton University, and then dive into a little bit of research methodology for college-level research. So to get started, I'll be first introducing me and a little bit more about how I can help you. Then we'll go into the library's resources and the different services, as well as discuss the difference between scholarly materials and popular sources. We'll also look at Flashfind and the database search strategies that are going to be really useful to you, and then also look at our website. So again, hello, my name is Cheyenne, and I am your subject librarian. If any of the subjects to the right of my picture are classes that you are in, taking, or any of your majors or minors, please feel free to contact me for help. You can contact me at any of the contact information to the right of your screen. So to find the library resources, I would recommend just jumping right onto the library's website. And from there, you can scroll down and see that our main services are on these hot buttons right at the center of your page. So first and foremost, I want to talk about meeting a librarian. That means that if you have a research question or you need some help in a class pertaining to research, you would click on the Meet a Librarian page. From there, if you don't know who your subject's librarian would be, you can select the subject. But if you do, you can go directly down to the person's picture. From there, you can search the different subject areas or click on the appointment button. When you click on the appointment button, it will give you a few different options. First, the appointment length, depending on how in-depth your question is. Then you can see, depending on the date, my open availability. From there, you would click Continue and Schedule. The Interlibrary Loan hot button takes you to our service, Interlibrary Loan. If you're not familiar with Interlibrary Loan, we do have some resources to talk more about it, but essentially this service requests other materials from other libraries free of charge to be delivered to you, either physically or digitally. To request something for Interlibrary Loan, you would click on this Request an Item via Interlibrary Loan button. From there, it's going to ask you to log in using your Stockton credentials. And this is the menu you would use. To make a request, click New Request and choose the type of material you are searching for. If you have items that have been delivered to you, either digitally or physically, you will get an email. And if it did come digitally, you can click on Ready to Download here to view the item. Back at the home page, I want to point out the Subject Guide hot button. If you click on that, you will go to a menu with a whole bunch of different topics. From here, you would select the appropriate topic you're looking for and click on the link. A subject guide is a research guide, which is essentially just something to help you find resources and locate appropriate tools. On this subject guide, it is all about environmental science. At the top, we have some recommended books and ebooks available to you through our library, some helpful websites, and some reference or getting started materials. To the left of the screen, you will see databases and journals, different assistance, help, citation resources, and even career resources. Other things I'd like to point out are our contact information, the hours, and our Ask Us chat button. The Ask Us chat is essentially a text tool that will let you text us for help. Scrolling down the page to the left, you'll see other hot buttons for items and services that are commonly asked for. So for instance, if you'd like to find zero-cost courses, click on this button and it will give you a list of different courses. Additionally, if you're looking for novels or any type of recreational reading like audiobooks, click on this and it'll take you to our Libby site. All of these are very useful services. One other thing I'd like to point out is our Citation Tools. If you click on that link, and scroll down, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of helpful information on different citation styles. Here you will find some guides and resources as well as information on the actual style guides themselves, many of which we carry at the Richard E. Bjork Library. Back to the PowerPoint, now it's time to discuss information. And before I go into scholarly versus popular sources, I'd like to first discuss what bad information looks like. Good information and bad information, there isn't really a telltale way to figure it out, but it does have some characteristics that looks different from good information. So first and foremost, we have misinformation, which if you're not familiar, misinformation is just mistaken information. So what does that mean? It means that the information is wrong, but it wasn't intended to deceive. On the other hand, we have disinformation, which if you guess it, it's dishonest information, which means that this is totally a lie. This information that you found is fully intended to deceive you. And finally, we have a third type that I'm going to let you use some context clues, but essentially it's, I don't care if this is true or not, I'm going to say it anyway. And all three types of bad information are everywhere, including scholarly and popular sources. To jump into some examples, I like to use this one as an example for misinformation. So this person kept coming up on my TikTok and I kept seeing this video and I kept thinking to myself, why on earth am I getting this? Because I saw that she was using an actual article. I can see that that article is coming from the government. It's a .gov, right? It was also coming from PubMed. And just looking at the title, I can see that it's probably pretty good information. Now, I read the article, and the key findings were that there was a compound found in citrus fruits that could help alleviate constipation. That's great. The method that they used in this experiment was they experimented on rats, and their conclusion was that this compound might be a promising treatment for constipation. However, this is not what this TikToker was actually saying. What this person was saying was that if you eat an orange with a peel on, doused in cinnamon and cayenne pepper, it's going to help you go within 5 minutes, and it's definitely effective on humans, which is not at all what this article actually said. So I'd like to think that this person isn't trying to actually burn your esophagus, and she's just trying to help you. What I think actually happened is that she mistook this information and now is portraying this as truth, as factual information, and that's not okay. Disinformation, however, we see all of the time, right? We see them in ads, we see them all over our screens, we even see them in promises that people make, right? Think of the Fire Festival. They were promised a certain level and an expectation of a festival, and this is what they got. Sad bread. Well, this disinformation was intended to deceive. There is motivation behind it, usually financial, but it could be other motivation to deceive you. They want something from you. And the third type of information we can spot, but we don't really have to get into. Now, what does that look like in research, right? Because all of those were common examples in everyday life, but we can see bad research information in scholarly and popular sources. So that looks like misinterpreted results, conflicts of interest, correlation not equaling causation, using out of date information, right? If we're looking at science information, we don't want to hear things from the 70s. It's not current information. Cherry-picked information. That means I'm going to take this data and combine it and ignore this other data because it doesn't suit my need. That's not good information either. And then information that isn't peer-reviewed, that can be an issue. It isn't always an issue, but it can absolutely lead to bigger problems. So how do we combat this? We start with skepticism, always. So who's telling me this information? Means, is this credible? Why should I believe this? Is this useful? And what are they trying to sell me? What is the purpose of this information? In other words, good information is credible, useful, and I want to also point out that it brings you joy. Good information isn't just about being credible and useful. It needs to also suit your needs, right? It needs to make you happy in your research that, hey, I found this article, it fits my needs, I'm not doing anything bad with this information like cherry picking the information, and it's going to work perfectly. It brings you joy to use this article. So now that we have a good understanding of good information versus bad information, let's talk about the different types of information we might come across. So I'm sure you're all familiar with primary sources and secondary sources. When we think of primary sources, you've probably taken a history class that says Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Ben Franklin, and that's a primary source, right? And we see that and we love that in the humanities, right? That firsthand account of something that's written right then and there. In the sciences, we have primary sources, and those are usually the first experiments, right? The very founding information, the founding data. And we like those sources, but we also prefer secondary sources in these sciences, in medical, in all of these different health and science-related fields. Now, we like primary in the humanities because I said it's the first-hand account. However, in the sciences and the health sciences, that secondary information means that it's actually a little less biased because it's been more filtered. Other people have looked at this information and they've commented on it, maybe made some criticisms, maybe fixed some things, and so on and so forth. And it's a process that keeps going and going and going until finally we have this secondary information saying this first information was good, but look at this second information. It's even better because so many eyes were on it and so many people replicated these experiments to say, yes, this is good information. So where do we find this good information? Well, there's a few options, right? As I said, the library databases, our library website, is an excellent place to find information. But that's not it. You can use Google and Google Scholar too. It just depends. So as I said, our library databases. What is a library database? When we talk about library databases in our library website, specifically our main tool, Flashfind, I want you to think about your smart TV or any kind of smart device like a smart TV. I want you to think about you talking into the remote and saying Lilo and Stitch. And then all of the results are going to pop up where you can find Lilo and Stitch to stream. Our library website does the same thing. If you're looking for hazardous waste management and you type that into Flashfind, it's going to search all of our subscription databases to see where you can find information on that and pull up all of your results in one place. Really useful, something you use probably more than you even realize. And there's a few characteristics, right? Because databases aren't search engines and search engines aren't databases. So what is a database? Well, if you're looking at a database, it should be three things. It should be used to store information, it should be highly organized, and all of that information should be retrievable. If it's not all three of those characteristics, it's not a database. So when you think of Google as a search engine and not a database, we can say, yes, information is stored there. It's also retrievable. You get millions of results, if not more. But it's not highly organized, right? Because it's an algorithm that my algorithm is going to pull up different results than your algorithm. It's not organized. Something to also note is that databases like to tell you where they're finding that information. They're very transparent in the words they use and where they're locating this. Databases are not search engines in that way. Search engines do not tell you where they're finding that information all the time. And they're not telling you what words they searched because you might think that it's searching your query, but sometimes they don't. And I'll take a look at that with you when we talk about Google Scholar. So what do we use Flashfind for? Mainly scholarly journal articles, popular magazine articles, newspaper articles, reference materials, and of course we have so many books. And right here, you see that eye in the sky above the book? I want you to keep that in mind because if you see that icon, that means that this information that you found, regardless of the container, is peer-reviewed. And if you're not familiar with peer review, it is a process, it is a publishing model that many people look over the work, and it goes through over a series of time, a long series of time, sometimes years, to say this is good information. We like peer-reviewed materials, especially in the sciences. So again, what is a search engine? I already touched upon it. The short answer, pure chaos. Their queries returned by algorithms. It's not organized, it's not accessible, and you get to search through so many results, which I bid you good luck. So then what is a popular source? We talked about databases, we talked about peer review a little bit. A popular source is mainly for a general audience of non-experts. It's written by non-experts, and it's essentially a non-expert taking something that is really great information and putting it in terms that everyday people understand. They're taking out the jargon, they're taking out any of the really complicated mechanisms that they're discussing, and they're going to make it very digestible for the average person to read. So we see these different publications like CNN, The New Yorker, BBC, and these different news outlets that have an editor, right? Someone's looking it over, it's good information, it's just not peer-reviewed. So now we talked about popular sources, and we know that we can find peer review and popular sources on our databases, on our library website. What do we go to Google for? Google is really great for information that we can't find on Flashfind on these databases. It's current information. It's things like statistics, different organizational websites, or where you can find jobs, current news and stock market information, and of course, just average websites. Those are things that don't live in Flashfind. They don't live in the databases. And now wait, what about Google Scholar? What is Google Scholar? As I said, it's not a database, and it's kind of a search engine, but it's kind of a sweet spot right in the middle. It has pros, right? So just like our databases, you're going to get scholarly sources. And just like a search engine, you're going to get a lot of results. But here are some issues. It contains gray literature and non-scholarly materials, just like a search engine. And that gray literature, if you're not familiar, is good-looking information. You might even think it looks peer-reviewed, kind of like a conference proceeding, but it's not actually peer-reviewed. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just kind of in the middle. It's not peer-reviewed, but it's also not really a popular source. It's kind of just in the middle. It also doesn't guarantee that it searched the words you searched. For instance, if I am searching dental plaque on Google Scholar, it might not actually search that. And it's not going to tell you that it didn't search that. It might search tartar, it might search dental calculus, it might just search calculus, but you have no way of knowing. And that's a problem. The filters are very limited as well. If you've ever used Google Scholar, you probably only have about 3 filters, and that's not very useful. It also returns unlicensed materials, which is very frustrating when you're trying to get an article and a pop-up comes up saying, hey, give me money. For $39.99, you have access to this article all month. We don't do that, right? We come to Stockton University and we want to learn. We don't want to pay for any more information, and you don't have to. That's when Interlibrary Loan would be a really helpful service to you if you really needed that article. It also, the results are controlled by Google's algorithm. So again, if I search something on Google Scholar and you search something on Google Scholar, our results are going to be very different, and that is not useful to us as researchers. All right. Let's switch gears. Now we're going to be talking about Flashfind and database search strategies. And mainly, whether you're using Flashfind or you're going right into a database, you're going to be using mostly the same, if not the exact same strategies. In that, databases and Flashfind use keywords. It's not a Google search, right? So just like a search engine would use natural language, databases use keywords. By natural language, I mean a search query might look like, What can calcified teeth plaque tell us about the life of Homo habilis? That would be a really great search engine search, right? Because I'm very direct and I'm asking a question. But that's not how databases work. If you type that into a database, you're going to get so many results, or you might get nothing because of the way they search, and they search through keywords. So what do I mean by that? We're going to take out some of the most important information out of this topic. I want to look at the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. So first, I'm asking about calcified teeth plaque. Now, I might not actually be thinking about calcified teeth plaque in that way, right? I might think of dental calculus or tartar, and all of those could be different keywords that I use. I'm also talking about the life of Homo habilis, right? I'm trying to find out what is this Homo habilis's behavior, environment, diet. That's what I mean by life. I need to be more specific. And finally, I'm talking about Homo habilis, right? Well, Homo habilis goes by H. habilis as well. So all of these different terms, including the original highlighted terms, are different keywords I could use to search. Now that's great that I found my keywords, but now how do I actually search that? In a database, we use something called Boolean operators. And this, quite simply, are just and, or not. You use and when you're trying to combine terms, right? So dental calculus and Homo habilis, and it's going to search everything that contains those two terms and give me back results that only have those two terms associated with it. For or, I like to use this when we have different names for different things, right? So tartar or dental calculus or dental plaque. Sometimes I use it with common names or scientific names. I'm looking for a smilodon or a saber-toothed cat. Then we use not when we want to omit a search term. That's really useful when you find out those silly researchers are using smilodon, not saber-toothed cat. So that's how you would write that. And we can get more advanced by using these different things. For instance, phrase searching. This is really helpful when you have a phrase and the words that combine that phrase are very common things. So if I search skin cancer in Flashfind, it's going to result in everything that says skin, everything that says cancer, and everything that says skin cancer. And that's going to be a lot to sort through, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is put those little quotation marks around skin cancer, and I've now told the Flashfind or database that that is a phrase I am looking for, and to think of that as one word. And that will return only queries with skin cancer. Truncation is a technique we use if we're kind of trying to broaden our search. In my example, I used genetic. I took the trunk of the word, and by putting the little truncation symbol, it's going to search anything with that trunk and guess at the ending of it. So that will return results with genetic, genetics, genetically, and so on. And I'm going to have so many results to really search through the different literature. Then nesting, I want you to think of your math class. Nesting you can think of as PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? We all learned that. It's just an order of operations. So in my example, genes or genetics and skin cancer, it's first going to search genes or genetics and then skin cancer. That's another way of broadening my search. So let's make a query. Going back to my original topic, I want you to think really quick. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? What am I actually looking for? Using our advanced techniques and our Boolean operators, one of the options you might come up with, and my query might look different from your query, is Homo habilis as a phrase or H. habilis. That could be a phrase, maybe it's not. It's up to you. I should have probably put phrase quotes, right? Instead, that way it's not just searching H and not just searching habilis. Then I'm combining that with the and Boolean, dental calculus, or plaque, or tartar, and behavior, not diet. So once we make our query and we found those awesome articles that we're looking for, when we're writing our paper, what else do we need to do? Well, we need to give credit, right? So we do that by citing our work. But why are citations important? One, citations are the only way to avoid plagiarism. If you don't know if you should be citing something, when in doubt, cite it. Typically, the only things we don't need to cite are commonly known things like the sky is blue. It gives proper credit to the original author of the work, the original creator. It also allows your audience to fact check you, to say, hey, is this real information? Is this good information? Which means it increases your credibility as a researcher. You are not just a consumer of research, you're also a producer of research. So your credibility is just as important as the credibility of the work you're finding. And it also leaves a trail of research breadcrumbs for others, which means if you write this stellar paper and you have a whole bunch of citations, someone else can say, wow, I loved that research. I'm so interested. I'd love to read the other research articles about this that other people looked at. And that's now a scholarly conversation that they're reading. And that's a really cool way of getting involved in research and also allowing other people to get involved in things that you are passionate about, that research that you're doing. So what do citations look like? Well, citations are just 4 basic elements. It might look very daunting and very long, and you just are a little confused by what all of this means in a citation, but really it's just an author or creator, the time and day that they found it, right? That date that they created this information, the title of information, and then where the hell to find it. So in this instance, we have 2 authors that produced this article in 2022. I have the title, and then I have the journal, the issue, the volume, and the pages, as well as the DOI that will find this information for me. So this is everything someone needs to check you and also to go back to that research and look up this research that you cited in your paper. Now, if you need help with citations, we have a citation style guide, but there's also a whole bunch of different resources. Great places to look on the library website because we have those different referenced works for citations, remember? So now I'm going to be jumping into the website demo, but again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. So going back to the library's homepage, the first thing you should see is Flashfind. We've been talking about Flashfind and we are going to search. So I am going to search hazardous waste management. Oh, I spelled something wrong. Make sure your search terms are correct. And search. And now I want you to pay attention to how many results I got. That's so many results. I am definitely not going to be searching through all of these results. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over to the left side here, and I'm going to look at the different filters we have. Now, if you've ever shopped online, you know all about filters, so I don't have to tell you about filters. But I want to point out a few to you. We have a scholarly peer-reviewed filter, and that's going to be so helpful. So I want that. I'm also looking for an article. That's the kind of container I'm looking for. And I don't want things from 1701. I want things within the last 10 years. 3 if I'm lucky, 5 is great though. So I'm going to start at 2020. And then I'm going to apply my filters. And that brought me down over 100,000 results. That's so helpful. We can continue to drill down, or we can personalize it, which means that if you're signed into your library account, you can click on this button and you can say, hey, I am only looking for sciences, earth sciences, or maybe I'm only looking for, oh, I don't know, public health. Click Personalize It, and now all of your search terms will always be personalized to that discipline no matter what. Which means if you are searching for something outside of the preferred discipline, you need to go back in and remove these, just to keep that in mind. So going back, let's say this is the article I found. I can click on the title, and it's going to bring me to this landing page. So here you're going to see the article title, the creators, and where to find it. Now, I want you to scroll down and take a look at this information. This citation button here is going to be a lifesaver. If you click on that, it's going to give you the citation. You can copy that citation right into your paper. However, I need you to remember to check the citations because the information is only as good as the citation it's pulling from the databases. So if the citation's wrong, it's going to be wrong in here, which means it's going to be wrong on your paper. And no one wants points reducted because of a bad citation. I also want you to pay attention to these buttons right here. So going back to my list, I have a new article, and I have this button here, which says Find Sources Citing This, which means if I click on this button, it's going to give me sources that cited that original article. If I click on the other button, Find Sources Cited in This, it's going to give me sources that this article had cited with links to it, which means that we have those articles in our databases and you can read them. If you're looking for more information on a topic, that's a great way to find related information. I also want you to pay attention that if you click on something, we might also have some recommendations. Another great way of finding more information on a related topic. Something else I want to point out to you is when you go to the actual article and you scroll down, you're going to see where it's available at. So this article lives in Science Direct, which is a database we have. That's how you would access this article. If you keep scrolling down, you're going to find other keywords. So you know that this article is talking about environmental policy and solid waste management. You can also sometimes see the abstract, which is so helpful to actually see if you need this information. Always read the abstract first, and it's going to save you a lot of time. Time is so important when we're researching, so we don't want to waste any of it. Now, if you read the abstract and you see your subject terms, those keywords, and you say, yep, this is great, you're going to connect to the journal. And here you are. It brought you right here. Some things I want to point out. You can share this article from Science Direct to your email. Really helpful. But I think that everyone should know that you have the View PDF button, and here's where you would download that PDF and save it to your computer. Now, you should always save your PDFs because when we go into a database, we're actually behind a paywall, which means if I copy the actual permalink of the database, that sciencedirect.com/whatever, if you copy and paste that into a different browser, it is not going to pull up that information. So always take the permalink, always save the PDF, because if you love this article and only kept that permalink that said sciencedirect.com, you are not going to be able to get back to it, and there's nothing we can do to help you with that. Going back to show you, if you ever see this chain, this permalink chain, you click on it and save this if you don't want to save the actual PDF, because this will get you to that article every single time. And we don't want to lose our work, so always save it. Going back to our search results, I just want to point out that you can pin these items to a personalized library as well. You can also search different terms with advanced search, and you can choose from up here whether you're looking for articles, books, journals, etc. Now, just keep in mind, anytime you change this, anytime you change your searching, it's not going to save your filters. So remember to click Remember All Filters. That way you stay consistent and it saves you more time. And with that, That concludes our demonstration. I'll see you in the next video.